Hello and welcome back to Matt Hayes' Tottenham Blog. After another victory for Tottenham in the Premier League, that is 3 on the bounce as we beat Norwich by 3-0. Started off by a Lucas Wondergoal and wrapped up in the second half from goals from Davinson Sanchez and Heung-min Son. Today we're going to run through the entire game, looking at the first half and second half, which again, like on Thursday, I think were two very different halves indeed. Looking at some standout performers, as has been mentioned in the chat already, Matt Doherty doing quite well when he came on, and also looking about what this means ahead of Tottenham's game against Rennes on Thursday, and a very busy period, of course, coming up throughout the Christmas. Before we do get into that, if you are new to the channel, please do make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more videos like this throughout the month, and also a reliable coverage of the January transfer window. Look, let's dive straight into things. Let's dive into the comments. And as Gregory says here, I'm delighted Matt Doherty came on and played well. He's had extremely bad press, but people forget he had COVID last year. He played brilliantly for Ireland against both Portugal and Serbia recently, and he certainly did. And I'm not sure if that's kind of added to or taken away from my frustrations with Matt Doherty at club level, that he has played so well for Ireland, pocketing Cristiano Ronaldo in that recent game against Portugal. But as we get on to the second half, we'll dive into that a lot more later on. Niall, good to see you in the live chat. Rune saying 10 out of 12 points for Don Antonio so far. And Jamie says Spurs are back, sitting pretty in fifth with the game in hand, and we certainly are. And that is something that we need to, I think, as Rune says, let's not jinx it. Let's stay a bit calm with the way things are going. But we're off to a good start under Antonio Conte. And speaking of good starts, it's not something we made in the very opening exchanges in this game. And I think that the first couple of minutes was really dodgy, and Norwich came fighting out of the blocks straight on that front foot, which I think we weren't quite expecting. And to be perfectly honest, we were quite lucky not to go behind with that chance for Teemu Pukki in the second or third minute of the game. And as I touched on already, the clean sheet that we got in this game, I think it's one that deserves very little credit for our defence and a lot more for the missed opportunities from Norwich, because they were few and far between, but the chances they did get were very clear-cut and probably should have ended up in at least a goal or two for them. So a bit of a lucky start there with that one. But I think from that moment when Pukki missed that opportunity, we saw the beginning of another incredible performance from my man of the match tonight again, Oliver Skipp, who after rebounding that one managed to, instead of panicking and just booting the ball out for a corner, held off an attacker, spun in his own 18-yard box and played a good ball out, which started a break for Spurs. And then a couple of minutes later, he started another break, picking up the ball in the middle of the park and driving through that Norwich midfield, forcing that defence backwards and testing Tim Krul from the edge of the box. And again, it's just what we expect from Skipp at this point. From then right to the last minute, very, very good performance. The same as what it was against Brentford, just breaking up play in the middle of the park. Looked a bit more capable on the front foot in terms of making those breaks forward. And his passing, I thought, was a lot better today. Not that it was poor on Thursday, but we just saw a little bit more from him in that regard today. In the opening 20 minutes, of course, there's one key event that we have to look at. We will touch on in a second, but Norwich did have their chances. There was that moment when Reece was under pressure and gave the ball away to Teemu Pukki again, who thankfully messed up that pass. But in the opening 20 minutes, Norwich had 67% of the possession. And I think it was fairly similar to that second half against Brentford, where, yes, we conceded a lot of possession, but we were, I think, comfortable and to some extent in control of what was happening, despite the fact that Norwich had a lot of that ball. A lot of it was in their own half, and we were pressing high up the pitch. And while that was never effective in terms of turning over possession, I think it nullified the threat that Norwich had, because all that possession they were getting was between their holding midfielders and their defensive line. And it made us look comfortable and look in control when maybe to some extent we might not have been. I just touch on Skipp there as well again, by the way. In that first half, he had 100% pass accuracy and 100% take-ons completed. That's according to Squawka. Brilliant performance. Absolutely brilliant performance by him again. Kev, good to see you, says, well, to win and grind out a win when we didn't play particularly well is great. Skipp man of the match for me. Agreed there on that one as well. Niall saying good win, but it was Norwich. They could have scored a couple. Good win, but a lot of work still to do. And that is an important point, and I have this taken down in my notes again. Like I said against Brentford, this type of performance just won't cut it when we come up against the better opposition in the Premier League. But then in the same breath, you can only beat what's in front of you. And in both of these games, we did enough. We did more than enough to get those victories over the line with relative comfort. Our first two victories of more than one goal this season, which is good to see. But look, onto Lucas Moura's goal. It's definitely something we haven't seen him do in so long. But the goal came from that link up with Son that I spoke about on Thursday, with the two of them on paper playing as wingers, playing as wide players, but coming in really narrow. And that link up where Lucas plays a short little quick ball into Son lays it back off into the space where Lucas is already running into it, and then Son spins and he's gone. Now in this instance, the when the ball came back to Lucas, he took a bad touch and was forced backwards. Then with the pressure from Andre Omabamidele behind him, managed to turn him onto his right foot and absolutely fired it into the top corner. An unbelievable strike that not a lot of goalkeepers would have been able to keep out. And I think from that point, as I mentioned, the difficult start that we had with the couple of chances for Norwich that they probably should have taken, I think that knocked the stuffing out of them, because they had that game plan, which every team of that level coming to a bigger team like Spurs is going to have, where they're going to try and see the game out to maybe 60, 70 minutes with just keeping it at 0-0, and then maybe try and grab a goal in the latter stages. But that incredible strike from Lucas changed that completely. And I think Dean Smith, he won't be too upset from a Norwich perspective with that goal. You could say maybe Omabamidele should do a little bit better in preventing Lucas from getting into that space. But we hadn't really gotten a hold of the ball at that point. We certainly hadn't created any clear-cut opportunities, which I don't think we did really, even beyond that in the first half. So I don't think Norwich can be too frustrated from a defensive point of view. They were just outdone by a really, really, really impressive strike by Lucas Moura. I don't think any of us really have the words to describe that properly, but brilliant goal. Bradley says, Conte winning with poor players. Imagine what he could do with the players he wants in the transfer market. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does there. And I think we are learning the positions that he does need to invest in. Brian Daigle, absolute legend. Good to see you in the house. I'm sure you enjoyed that performance today from a couple of players in particular as well. The worst part of that first half, a bit worrying to see Sergio Reguilón go off with what looked like to be a thigh injury on his left leg. I was watching the watch along with David on the Irish Hotspur channel, and Dark Sun G, who's a massive supporter of this channel as well, put a comment in there saying that in the build up to the game, Korean commentary actually said that Reguilón wasn't feeling too great and that he didn't seem to be 100% fit. I didn't really take much notice of that until we saw him go down 20-25 minutes into that game. And you have to ask the question, did we really need to risk him in a game against Norwich? We want to give Ryan Sessegnon chances, and we also don't want to overwork players, especially ones that may be suffering with little knocks. Is this a game where we could have started Ryan Sessegnon? In hindsight, it's easy to say that it was, but I would question that decision to start Reguilón if he was feeling a little bit unfit before that game. You then say, look, it was a good chance for Sessegnon, first and foremost. I think he did well on the front foot. Was certainly a lot better than he was in that Conference League game against Moura. But we now ask the question, if that Reguilón injury is bad, or look, even if it's a knock that you don't want to risk him again on Thursday, who do we start in left wing back against Rennes in a game that could see us eliminated from the Conference League? Because of course Sessegnon is injured or is suspended, having picked up that red card against Moura. So bit of a worrying thing there to take from that game. Tony says, great to have you back. Great to be back, Tony. Thanks a million for tuning in. Kev says, thoughts on Kane. Will he get back to his best? And interestingly, the very next point on my notes here is about Harry Kane in that first half, and I have a few further down on him in the second half. I have there my title, Kane coasting, and I don't really think there's much argument with that one. In the first half, I think perhaps the service to him could have been a little bit better, and he was getting frustrated at times with the lack of good quality crosses and passes he was getting. There's that one, for example, where Lucas had that ball to the right hand side, pinged it across the front of the 18-yard box. Kane stepped over it, went to Son coming in the inside left channel. Kane made a good run in behind the centre backs, and Lucas could have slipped that ball through to Kane. Instead, he scuffed his shot, which ended up deflecting off Harry Kane and actually just wide of Tim Krul's post. But then about a minute or two after that, Ben Davies had the ball on the left, and Kane made a good peeling run to the back post. And Davies just didn't, whether he didn't see that run or decided not to try and whip that into the back post, I'm not quite sure. But in that first half, Kane was frustrated with that service. In that second half, he was just a passenger, and it's really upsetting to say this about a player who, is a hero to all of us for what he's done with Tottenham in the last couple of years. Towards the end of the game, he had a few efforts from range, one on his right foot that Krul, I think, got down well to tip around the post, but in the same breath, you'd have to say it was a save you'd expect a keeper like Krul to make. He won his left foot as well, straight at the goalkeeper. But he had so many slack passes. There's even actually mentioned that first half, that chip from 30 yards out when Krul was off his line, it went so far wide that in the past, it's one that he would have put away with ease. In that second half, there was one moment he had the ball on the right wing, and Son made that typical run that we saw so many times last season, that Kane is able to pick him out, where he's running kind of inside the right back and a centre back, and Kane usually whips it right onto Son's head. He scuffed it and went through to the goalkeeper. And look, Toxic Hedge is saying, stop hating on Kane. There's no one hating on Kane. I'm here to analyse the game, and I'm analysing it in the way that I saw it. He wasn't good, and I don't think he was good against Brentford. I don't think he's been good at all this season. So there's no hating on Kane. It's a simple analysis of what we saw today. Kane was one of the worst players on the pitch. I'm going to say it as it is. I also got a question about it, so if you want me to ignore that, then maybe I shall. But will he get back to his best cases as well? It is a matter of time. It is a matter of time before he gets back on the score sheet again like that. But you question then, will that be with Tottenham or will that be elsewhere? I'm not entirely sure. And as Kev says, no one's hating on Kane. Where are we? Look, in that first half, basically a summary. It was decent. Again, we beat what was in front of us. There's a little bit of progress from what we've seen in recent weeks and recent months. We have so many half chances. Like I mentioned, that chip for Kane. There's that one for Skip at the edge of the box. There was Lucas, I think, had one in the latter stages of the half as well. And look, that's what we need to change. Bringing those half chances to actual full chances. That final ball just a little bit better. Those runs at the front line a little bit better. But again, like I mentioned on Thursday, we can't go from 0 to 100. It would be a case of starting to get back into those patterns of play and getting back kind of to a little bit of form, and then that's when things like that will start coming together, and we may be a bit more clinical on the front foot again. In the second half, up until that goal from Davinson Sanchez, we never got going. We really didn't. Massive problems down our right hand side. Norwich created a few opportunities from there. We had a lucky escape with the Adam Ida miss when Brandon Williams got in behind Jaffa Tanganga. He pulled the ball to the edge of the box to Teemu Pukki, who kind of scuffed his shot, but Adam Ida 6-7 yards out. Managed to open up his right foot to get a little bit of contact on the ball, but he put it wide. And look, I've seen it with Ireland time and time again. But worrying start there. And immediately after that opportunity, Tanganga was actually replaced by Matt Doherty. And I had it in my notes that we were struggling down that right hand side just as Matt Doherty was coming onto the pitch. I said same feeling as the game on Thursday. This won't cut it against most Premier League teams, like I mentioned earlier. There are teams when we're playing better teams will take those opportunities that Norwich just couldn't really put in the back of the net today. But on that point of Doherty, as Gregory mentioned earlier in the stream, he offered a lot more balance on the front foot and a lot more safety at the back, and it was so refreshing to see because there was a lot of people questioning. Killian Kenny, great to see you in the live chat as always. People are questioning why Tanganga was chosen ahead of Matt Doherty, and I don't think Tanganga is good enough on the front foot to be that right wing back. I think as a right back, he may be a little bit different as a right wing back. It's a very, very different situation. And you have to question what Conte's plans with Matt Doherty really is with him not starting that game. But I think Doherty did himself well when he came on. Like I said, offered a lot more on the front foot, and we were more assured at the back. And I think the chances that Brandon Williams was creating down that side really were cut away by Doherty's presence there. That's when we get to the second goal for Sanchez. I complained about the short corners on Thursday against Brentford, and maybe about 5 minutes later, after I tweeted that out, we scored from a short corner. And just as Son was lining up that corner that eventually led to the goal, as he always does, he bounced the ball once or twice, which I'm sure is to indicate some sort of set piece tactic or where he's going to put the ball to the players that are in the box. And I was thinking as he bounced that ball, what's the point? Because it hasn't worked at all today. And then that ball goes in. Davis flicks it on. It flicks off a defender, and an instinctive finish by Davinson Sanchez. You do have to acknowledge it was a very lucky break of the ball, but a good finish from Sanchez. And that was game at that point because Norwich were struggling to score one. Never were going to score two. And I think you could see that kind of from the momentum and the dynamic of the game from that point, which was encouraging because we struggled to see games out. Like we were saying before that game against Brentford, we hadn't won a league game by more than a goal this season, but we're wrapping them up a little bit now, and Norwich never really threatened after that, bar one chance for Josh Sargent, who is useless. I really can't understand how Josh Sargent is a Premier League footballer, but again, lucky to see that. Lucky to see those chances go and miss for Norwich. I was so impressed with Oliver Skip and Ben Davis through the entire game, but for that third goal as well, they linked up really well, and Ben Davis he's our Victor Moses in terms of the players that Antonio Conte can reinvigorate. And I've been saying for a while that I want Alessandro Bastoni to be our main centre-back signing in January. I'm not going to say I want Davis over Bastoni. I'm never going to say that. But that may not be as much of a priority, that position now, with the way Davis has, as Alistair Gold tweeted out, taken to that position like a duck to water. And he showed that again with the third goal. A good ball into Skip. And as a third centre-back, typically you wouldn't be the one making those runs into the box, but he, after made that pass, sprinted right through. A good return ball by Oliver Skip as well, and Davis managed to pick out Son. who took his time, waited till the opportunity, till there was a half yard there, and he put it back across the goalkeeper into the bottom corner, and it's 3-0, comprehensive victory, comfortable. Maybe flatters us a bit that, like I mentioned, we kept that clean sheet. Again, how much credit can we actually take for that when Pukki, Ida, and Sargent were missing those opportunities? But a very good third goal for Spurs, and wrapped up what was a performance that was enough, I think, again, is the best way that we can put that. I'll just mention quickly as well, a very good cameo by Steven Bergwijn, who we heard from the Telegraph in the Netherlands last week that he's not in Conte's plans. He's been told he can leave. Ajax want him to replace David Neres. Another good sub-appearance. Only 11 minutes coming on for Lucas Moura, but he linked up well with the players around him. And I think the best compliment you can kind of give players who come on in that stage of a game is we didn't lose any momentum on the front foot. He wasn't, taking a few minutes to get into the game. He got in straight away. Some good link up with Skip, good link up with Son. And there's definitely a place for him in the side. There's no doubt about that. And I think, as Conte said, that second striker option to play with Harry Kane is looking good. But again, we've been in this position before with Steven Bergwijn. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. But there's optimism and there is encouragement there, which is always good to see. Stark Raving Mad has said, great win. I feel we're clicking into gear with what Conte wanted. We need to get a striker in January to show Kane he's replaceable. And look, those comments that Conte made, was it Friday during his press conference, where he said he can't really see a point in the near future where we're starting without Harry Kane. And that undoubtedly comes down a lot more to what Kane can do rather than what Kane is doing. And if we're looking at teams that we need, or players that we need to replace, or positions we need to invest in, we do still have positions in that starting 11 that we need to invest in before we can go and start getting replacements or second string players. And I think to some extent Kane knows that, but I also think even if he didn't, I'm not quite sure how things will be working out for him this season. But Kane at the moment doesn't seem to be in any risk of losing his place in that team. And as much as I'm frustrated with his performances, I'd argue that's probably the right decision. A lot of love here for Oliver Skip. Alexander saying he was world class. He absolutely was. And Keith saying Skip, future Spurs and England captain. Gregory says Davis galloped up and down the left wing on Thursday night against Brentford, and his performance have been consistently brilliant. They really have. He's the perfect player in our squad right now for that position under Conte. And again, those Conteisms are creeping into our play today, and Davis is the perfect example of that, doing so well from that left centre back role. And look, he didn't seem to be affected by the loss of Reguilon, who I think is really important to that, because as Davis gallops forward like that, it creates more space for Reguilon down that left hand side. Because when you're playing with no wingers, essentially because of how narrow Son and Lucas are, Reguilon being down there on his own, he's going to cut a very lonely figure, and there's going to be a lot more defensive attention on him. But Davis getting into those half space positions, kind of makes the right back think a little bit what's going on. It drags the centre mid maybe out of position to mark him, and then that's more space in the middle for Son and Lucas. So not only in terms of what he can create in possession, but tactically very important to what we're doing at the moment. And he's, I think, eliminating a headache for Antonio Conte and for Fabio Paratici going into this January window. But next January, I would expect him to be replaced by a better centre-back, really, someone more suited to really challenging for the Champions League positions in the Premier League. But look, summary, another decent night, another night of progress. And we go on to Rennes on Thursday, which is going to be a worrying one again with no left wing back, depending on the severity of that Sergio Reguilon injury. But progress, we're now, is it 1 or 2 points off the top four in the Premier League with that game at hand against Burnley, which of course hasn't yet been rearranged, but things are looking better. 10 points out of 12 under Antonio Conte, just 1 goal conceded in 4 league games, a third clean sheet in 4. Things are looking up. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We have a busy January transfer window ahead of us, and I'm sure a very busy summer one as well, where hopefully Antonio Conte and Fabio Paratici will be able to invest in the players that they want to bring into this team, and then maybe we will see something special at Tottenham, but only time will tell on that one. Do make sure to hit the like button if you have enjoyed this stream, if you are happy with another victory for Spurs. And like I mentioned, if you want reliable coverage of the January transfer window, player analyses of these stories that are coming out, looking at transfer targets, anything you could want from a transfer show, please do make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. We're hoping to get to 12k as soon as we possibly can, and your support on that will be greatly appreciated. But for now, as always, thank you so much for watching.